So, to celebrate 500 subscribers on my YouTube channel, I figured I would review my CD collection. And, well, here it is, all spread out across the floor. There is 122 CDs here, and this is all through 1 year of collecting. So I'm actually going to start out here with, I've got a stack of about, I don't know, this is like 20 odd CDs here. These are some of my favorites. I'm just going to kind of nerd out over these. So, what is this? This is a Fortress Called Home by Seven Spires. This was released this year. I really like this one. They, if you don't know who Seven Spires is, they're a symphonic, like power metal, melodic death metal band. Vocalist Adrian Cohen. And they really do a great job with their symphonies. Honestly, like, it's probably one of the better, symphonic metal bands out there. This honestly is probably I would put this pretty close to one of my top picks for 2024 album of the year. This is Vader here. Now, I wasn't really into death metal for a while. It was kind of the one genre I didn't really like, and then I randomly tried listening to Vader for some reason. I actually really like them. They're more like thrashy, and I think that's why, because I don't really like straight death like Deicide, or it's still kind of iffy for me. But I don't know, something about Vader is just, I really like their music, And this is a personal favorite, Tibi at Igni. I probably listened to this one. I probably listened to this album like 10 times in the last year. Versus an Oath by Holder. Holder is a raw black metal band from, I'm pretty sure they're from the United States. I actually saw them live earlier in the year. They're actually really good. The crowd was kind of lame, but solid band. Another good black metal band, Bethlehem. Also like Dark and Nocturne Slaughter Cult. I don't have any of their CDs. They have the same book list, Onawir. I guess you would call it DSBM, so black metal. It's probably the only DSBM album I have in my collection. I just got this today. This is Seven Kingdoms, Decennium. This is probably my favorite album by them. They take a lot of influence off of Unleash the Archers, who's another one of my favorite bands. And I think this whole album is pretty good. Kingslayer is definitely my favorite track off the album. I'm actually going to see them live next month. And speaking of Unleash the Archers, you got Time Stands Still. Kind of one of their in-between albums where they change up their style a little bit. They actually started off more like a metalcore and mellow death band. They kind of transitioned more into power metal. This was kind of their in-between album, and I bought this mainly because it was the cheapest one I could find off of Amazon compared to their other albums. Tonight We Ride is probably the best track off this album by far. Definitely, if you gotta see them live just to hear Britney Slays, shout at the beginning of that song. It's really impressive. For some reason, there's two versions of it on this album. There's a video edit, and then there's the regular song. Another band I started getting into in the last year, I got 3 albums here for The Catafalque. It is actually a one-man Hungarian project by Tamás Kitaj. Released 12 studio albums, and I think he formed the band in 1996. It's like avant-garde metal. It's nothing you'll ever hear before. If you haven't heard it before, it's kind of gonna blow your mind. Every song sounds different. There's like Rangutang. This is definitely their magnum opus here. Every song off this album instantly memorable, except for maybe like the one interlude, which is kind of just there, but everything else is pretty good. I've listened to this album on CD probably in my car at least like 6 or 7 times, and then through Spotify additional like 24 times. You got Sublunary Tragedies. This, I think it was his first album. This is a re-release for Seasons of Mist. I didn't even know that this existed until I randomly ran into it in a record store. That's where I get most of my CDs. They're just used from record stores. Sometimes they're brand new, but a lot of mine are used, which sometimes you'll get ones that don't work, but I just have them to have them. And Lacuna Coil, probably one of the first metal bands I ever listened to. I'd say like 2019 or so. The CD is broken, even though I bought this directly from their show. They just gave me a crappy CD, which is kind of lame, but it's a good album. They really changed up their style from when they started out, but I think it suits them all right. This was a god tier find, Kylesa, Static Tensions. I think they're out of hiatus now, but they went on hiatus for like 8 or 9 years. It sucks because they're a damn good band. It's a sludge kind of, like stoner metal. It's kind of sounds a lot like Mastodon. You got some like, I don't know, like maybe High on Fire influences. Every song off this album is pretty good. It's just pure raw sludge metal. I'm not really a huge Overkill fan, and I picked up this random album here because I was just curious, because I've never really listened to them, and they're actually really good. This album in particular, they did something with the bass, so the bass is they cranked up the bass guitar in every single song, and it just makes for a kind of unique sound to me. I still don't really listen to them, but this album is probably one of my favorites just because of the good old bass guitar they got going. You need to listen to it. You only understand what I'm saying, and it really only sounds good on CD. Got like 10 more here, and then I'll make this like a 5-part series. The Raven Age. This was their, I think it's the 3rd album they released. Band trivia, I think the drummer, George Harris, is the son of Steve Harris, right, from Iron Maiden. All right. You get the gist of it. Really good band. They bridged the gap between metalcore and power metal for me. Frozen Crown was probably the first, one of the first power metal bands I ever got into about 2021. This is Winterbane. This is their 3rd album. They came out in 2021, the same year I got into them, with their brand new lineup. And the album, I mean, it's good. Like, all their albums are good, but I do prefer their first 2 albums, honestly, to this one. Honestly, I got this because Blood on the Snow is a pretty good track. And Far Beyond kicks ass. Probably not adding much of substance to my description of these albums, but this is Kram, that's how you say it, I think, by Arcona. Probably like my first introduction to folk metal, I would say. Besides like Corpiclani or Hailstorm. And this isn't really a folk metal album, though. As soon as I heard this album, I probably played it like 10 times in the rest of the day, because it was just something I'd never heard before. They really have their own unique style to them. Like, they combine, they're really going towards atmospheric black metal is where they're headed. I mean, they keep some folk elements here. Compared to their earlier stuff, it's a lot different, but it's a really solid album. I highly recommend it. Here we got a naked Simone Simmons on the Epica cover. You can see the Epica flag I have there. Probably one of my favorite symphonic metal bands. Started getting into them about last year. This was actually probably one of the first couple CDs I ever got, which picked up in like January from a record store. Album's kind of long, honestly, but it's a really good listen. Divine Conspiracy, their closing track, well, it gets a little repetitive and it's a little bit lengthy. I think it's the best one off the album. But I mean, honestly, this whole album is like I give it a 9.5 out of 10. Probably my favorite symphonic metal album. Just got this one a couple days ago. This is my favorite folk metal album, I think, besides maybe like Flavo from Arcona. Damn, man, I saw them live last year. Probably the best show I've ever been to. And it was a small venue, and Shriggle, however the fuck you say his name, he wasn't even there. They had Adrian Cohen on vocals. But it was a damn good show. Every single song on here, like I said, beside the interludes, we don't really count the interludes when I talk about albums. I mean, it combines, it's not really strictly folk metal. It has folk metal influences, but I honestly think of them more as a melodic death metal band at this point, with some influences of like metalcore, or sometimes they get industrial, and they also just have the flute going, which is pretty cool, I think. Probably not gonna know this band. Machina, my friend listens to them. We have some debate about how you pronounce it. Machina, I don't know. Not really sure how you pronounce their name. But they're they're solely a studio project. They don't tour. Joe Taberry, Melrose, and Dave Holt are the three people that make this music. It's like, you know, Mass Effect. Mass Effect metal is the best way I can describe it. It's all computerized except for the drums and I think the guitars, but it's really, you know, it's gonna fucking blow your mind, you know. It's perfect, you know. But it is computerized, which is why it is. This is probably one of their best albums. Xenon. Sometimes I don't really remember what these albums are called because I have so many of them. Obligatory Alestorm album. I actually have never been able to find anything Alestorm related in record stores, so I had to order all my Alestorm albums off of Amazon. And this is probably the first one I got. This is Captain Morgan's Revenge, which was their debut album. That's when they were still like thrash metal, before they started getting really corny. This is probably one of my favorite albums from them. Like, I consider their first three albums probably their best. I would say No Grave But the Sea is pretty good. And honestly, I do have a sweet spot for their 7 From. It was 7 From. This is actually my favorite band ever. Like, this is my #1 favorite band, Ephemer. Yeah, French symphonic melodic death metal. They're signed to Napalm Records, and I probably found them through random Spotify search. Instantly blew my mind. The first time I heard I think the first song I heard from them was probably Bloodline, which was their most popular song, off of Prokopton, and it kind of just blew my mind. I got their third album coming in the mail, but it's coming from France, so it's gonna take a while. These two albums right here are probably my most streamed albums of all time, besides when I was really into Breaking Benjamin like 5 years ago. These are like, this is peak, like 10 out of 10 metal here. They don't fuck around. It's really good stuff, and they're highly underrated. Like, I suggest checking them out. And then last we have Tilfjolls Del 2. I don't know how to say it. It's not English, obviously, by Wintersword, which is kind of a sequel to their original Tilfjells album. This is a really solid album, and actually, for some reason, it comes in 2 CDs. It was kind of a longer one. And if you don't know who Wintersword is, he was the former vocalist from Borkmager, and I actually got into Wintersword before I got into Borkmager. But it's like I guess you could call them black metal, but they're more along the lines of like Viking folk metal. Really good album though, highly recommend. That's about all I got today. I mean, if you want to see me talk about the rest of mine, I've got Iced-Earth here. This is my favorite power metal album, and it's probably like the 3rd CD I ever got. That's all I'll say about Iced-Earth for now, but you know, don't tread on me. Now I gotta pick these all off the floor, and I guess put them back on that fish tank here. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching. Maybe I'll do part 2 at like 1,000 subs. How's that sound?